two, 1 2, 1 2, 1 2 3 4. Alrighty. 1 2, 1 2. We're live. There we go. Hey everybody. How are we doing? Hope you're well on this Monday the 26th of September 2022. Welcome to Politics, Culture and Some Other Shit. This is a live stream. It'll be going out as a podcast. You'll have it tomorrow, I reckon. Yeah, might do it tonight maybe, so you can have it for going to work in the morning. So if you're listening to this in the morning, enjoy. Tonight we're going to be talking about the budget, the mini budget thing, and how psychopathic and mental the whole thing is. It's just fucking nuts. And there's no other way. There's no, that's not hyperbole. It really is absolutely fucking insane. Hopefully get a few guys over on the YouTubes later now. There's a few there, yeah. Hey everybody. Hope you're well. Say hi in the chat. We're going to talk about various things. I'm going to hit a few wee short stories. Oh, I'll tell you. Oh, so let's do this first. So, what have I got? Wanted to tell you about this stuff. Got some Bonneville's gigs coming up. So first of all, I have a gig this Saturday night, me solo, in Fealty's Bar in Bangor, County Down. Fealty's Back Bar Sessions. There's no charge, there's no cover, so it's free in, but it's a fairly small room. So if you want to go to that, doors at 9 till 8. That's what it says. So it'll be getting announced tomorrow officially, I think. They do it every Saturday night, and there's some fucking heads play it, like, it's really good. So I'm very lucky and delighted to, to be able to play that. It's fantastic. So that's this Saturday night. It's free in, so come. It's just me and my own with an acoustic guitar, be telling stories and singing songs. So you should come and see that if you're into that sort of thing. And then the next gig we have, you can see it up there on the... I got my dates wrong for that. So then the next gigs we have is... We're going on a tour. We're going to Norway and Sweden. We've never played in Sweden, but we've toured and played in Norway plenty. And we can't wait to do this. So it starts on the 13th, Thursday the 13th, in Malmo, in Sweden. And it finishes in the amazing Bastard Bar. Yes, that's really what the bar is called. In Tromsø, right in the very north there in Norway. And we've lots of friends there. We played there quite a bit. So it's a fantastic town. And for some reason, they like the Bonnevilles a lot. So we're going to do that. And then the next gig is the Alabama 3 gig. Why did I have that in my head that that was the 8th of October? Which it isn't. So that's Friday the 20th of October. Yeah, okay. Sorry, heads of Marley. Don't know what's going on. Friday the 20th of October, we're supporting Alabama 3 in Sandino's in Derry. It says their tickets are £20. Alabama 3 are fantastic. We're not bad either. It's well worth the money. So you should go to see that. We played with Alabama 3 before in Red Rooster Festival in England. I think I told you about this. They don't book us anymore. They fell out with us because we left our booking agent, who's the main booker for that festival. Oh, I could tell you stories. Yeah, so there's the tour. And then the next gig we have after that is the next night in Lurgan. The Bonnevilles, the first annual Halloween ball in the Woodville Arms. We're going to be doing that every year, obviously, because it's the first annual, so there's going to be a second. So we're going to have a Halloween ball in the Woodville, which is my local bar, just literally around the corner from my house. I spent far too much time there already. So that's on the 29th of October. Tickets are go to motorsoundsrecords.com or thebonnevilles.co.uk, and you get the links to all tickets. And then Belfast. We're playing Belfast the 22nd, Christmas gig in Voodoo, the 22nd of December. And the support has been announced. The Exhalers are supporting us. And Eva Kearney, what's her name? What's her band? Oh, Jesus, can't remember the name of her band. I'll rectify that. It's a weird wee odd name. It's just, yeah. But anyway, so that's what we're doing. So you should go and check those out if you wanted to go and see those dates. There's plenty there coming up. So I'm playing this Saturday in Fieldies, Alabama 3 in Derry, 28th. With that Scandinavian, well, Norway and Sweden tours, not all of Scandinavia, of course. Starting on the 13th in the Bonnevilles, in the Woodville on the 29th of October. So October's flat out when I look at that. That's good. That's great. I wish every month was like that. And then we've got Voodoo in Belfast for Christmas. A Christmas gig there. So that's going to be fun too. So there we go. Who's online? We've got some heads. Morris McElwain, good to see you, brother. Rev, I was coming to that. Yes, I went and got myself a wee badge. You were in the house. So Rev Duffer was in the house the other day, and you must leave that guitar around too. I'm really looking forward to seeing that. And I was taken with your little pin, so I went and got myself one. So thank you. Demo, I heard they're launching a new zero emissions highfalutin ferry from Belfast to Bangor in time for repeat gigs on. I heard about, I saw the design. It looked really good. Did you see that? The electric ferry. It looked very futuristic. I hope they do it. It sounds fantastic. More of that sort of stuff. Morris McElwain says here, Alabama 3, some live act. Absolutely. Last year in Voodoo was a great night. Tony G says on the YouTube. It was indeed. Yeah, it was a good gig. Yeah, indeed. So let's do it. Let's get to this. Rev, good man. Yeah, I really liked it. Oh, that was the other thing. So the reason I got so here you go, Rev. Right, okay, it's your fault. So I got interviewed for a magazine. So I don't know if you know this. Do you remember? You know Stu Bailey. You know who Stuart Bailey is. Remember him from? Used to radio one a BBC radio DJ, but he's up to his neck and everything. He's a music industry guy in Northern Ireland for decades. And this is his magazine. I don't know, it's a physical, actual magazine. You know, I can't remember the last time I bought one, but I do buy this. I pick this up every time I'm up in Belfast. Lovely sort of, I don't want to say boutique magazine, but there's a lot of effort put into this. The paper's gorgeous and the photographs are all special and everything. So, I was interviewed last week by one of their journalists, Josh, young fella, very nice lad too. So Stu asked me, you should pick this up. You can get it in the record shops. I don't know where else you can get it, but I know you can get it in Star Records and all that, those record stores up in Belfast. And it's really fucking good too. It's really nice. So it's all locally stuff, you know, mostly. Pretty much exclusively. A couple of comedians in there. There's a Michael Mormika feature. Obviously David Holmes, the amazing David Holmes. Axis of, you know, Kieran Bartlett, some drag, Shirley Ann McMillan, Michael Mormika, our pal who records the band. So things like that. So Stu says to me, do you have any recent unused headshots, photographs? And I said, I don't. And he said, well, come on up to Belfast and I'll take some. So Stu's into like film photography. So he's got like an old Rolleiflex camera, 120mm film and all in it. So that's what we did today. So Andy's going to be in the next one, talking about the podcast, by the way, as well. We're talking about the music stuff too, obviously, but the podcast was, I hope it's the main feature of the thing. So that's kind of cool, isn't it? I think so. So I was kind of excited about that. It means that the old pod's getting out there, and the project, what I'm doing here, is getting it's getting some legs, and it's always good to open it up to a bigger audience, which is the point, really. And then one of the things I was reminded of as well, which is why I'm doing this live stream. So this is what's going to bring me to the topic of tonight's live stream. Trickle Down Economics, right? So I was talking to the fella Josh. I don't mean to be patronising, but he was a young fella compared to me. Of course, I'd say he was in his early 20s. And he was saying that he actually is a fan of the podcast, or the whatever, and he listened and he learned a lot. He didn't realise the different about the colonialism that's going on, the imperialist projects going on around the world, and he sort of said a few things back to me that he'd learnt from the podcast, and I realised that what I'd done was I kind of lost sight a wee bit sometimes of what it is that I'd set out to do, and what it is that I want to do with this is explain about imperialism and all these things, but in a sort of a simple enough way. Not that I can explain it in a complicated, I'm not smart enough for that, but I kind of did. I need to keep that in mind. So that's the point. That was the point of this. Trickle down economics. What is it? So we're going to get to it, but not just straight away. We're going to show you this first. So a couple of little things, short stories. There's an Al Jazeera video. The news network has done an investigation into the scuppering of Jeremy Corbyn and by the Labour Party. We all knew this stuff was going on, right? And Damo has been sending me a few bits and pieces, and Rev has sent me a few bits and pieces, and I'm going to do a podcast on this because I haven't watched the documentary yet. I haven't had a chance. I literally haven't fucking stopped. So once I get a chance, I might get a chance tomorrow to watch what they've put out so far. So here's an interview, just a short thing with one of the people involved. Check it out.
It felt like I was watching a documentary about the mafia, not a political party. Or it felt like I was looking at a Gambino crime family in New York or something, because it was thuggish behaviour across the board of the unelected bureaucracy of the Labour Party. They were at war with elected officials and elected MPs, and at war with their own members, because they wanted to destroy the movement behind Jeremy Corbyn. And that's has big ramifications for British politics, because if you've got the main opposition party, which is being run by a clique, and trying to destroy the elected MPs and the elected officials, and destroy the membership, which had grown to 600,000 under Jeremy Corbyn. It was the biggest party in Western Europe. What kind of democracy do you have? So what Al Jazeera's investigation provides is the evidence that many people suspected was there, but it hasn't previously come out, because it was obvious during Jeremy Corbyn's leadership of the Labour Party that there was an avalanche of sabotage and subversion of his leadership by right-wing MPs and the bureaucracy, but we didn't actually have the evidence. Now we have the evidence.
Why didn't they like him?
Why didn't they like Jeremy Corbyn? Well, the Labour Party is part of the British establishment, and the British establishment was threatened by Jeremy Corbyn at a level.
This is an important point he's making, very important point. I think a lot of people, and I'm including myself in this, don't realise that. We don't get. We think that the Labour Party are supposed to be leftists and socialists, and they are supposed to be that, but they are ultimately a part of the British establishment. You know? And I don't know what their intentions was when they started out, but that's what they are, and that's what they've been for a very long time. And he's making this point, he's reminding us that that's what the Labour Party is, and we shouldn't put our fucking hope and faith in these people. Jeremy Corbyn was a great change, but he was very much an exception. People like Michael Foot and Tony Benn, these people were all leftists, but they were exceptions, right? So
that was historic. He threatened every element of the British establishment. He wanted to stop arms to Saudi Arabia. He wanted to stop arms to Israel. He wanted to give money to the NHS and the welfare state, and stop privatisation, and stop subsidising BAE Systems, our biggest arms contractor. So every element of the British state and every element of the British establishment was threatened by Jeremy Corbyn. He was a unique historic figure. So, and actually, it's important for people to understand that the Labour Party is part of that establishment. So, and it doesn't mean that they have to actively come out and say we're part of the establishment. And often they like to say we're not part of the establishment. Of course, it's called the Labour Party. They're meant to represent the working class. But actually, when a figure like Jeremy Corbyn comes along, they had to reveal themselves, and they had to reveal their true role within the British polity.
Mm-hmm. There we go. What about that? So I can't wait to see that. Rev says here on the... By the way, I never finished my point about the badge. So I was going to do the photo shoot, so I wanted to have the pin for the photos to be in the magazine. So that's what that was. But anyway, so you get his point. It's fantastic. Rev says here The Labour show was stunning. It's all about power and control. And Demo says on the YouTube, I know what the interviewer meant by learning about imperialism, colonialism from your pods. Andy, oh, okay. Same here, as well as neoliberalism. Give me a wee nudge into looking for it. Awesome. Fantastic. That's fucking perfect. Well, job's done then, man. That's exactly what I want to do. Thank you for that. So yeah. So that documentary's out on Al Jazeera. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can watch it on YouTube. If one of the boys could one of you search that and stick it into the chat and bang that in there, if would that be too cheeky for me to ask? Anybody who hasn't seen it, they can watch it. I think I'm gonna prioritize watching that tomorrow. Yeah. So that's that. What else have I got written down here? Yeah. So Italy has had an election, and they have. Oh, I must share something with you just before we move on to this next one.
So I have seen you occasionally.
Yeah, you have indeed.
So I have seen you occasionally.
Yeah, you have indeed.
I'm keeping that forever. That's staying. That's going. That's not. I'm not deleting that. That's staying. Fucking brilliant. I'm so happy to see that. That's very good. That's so funny. So, one more time. Okay, let's do it.
So I have seen you occasionally.
Yeah, you have indeed.
So I have.
Oh, Jeffrey. Did you see fucking Jeffrey Downs? Did you see Emma Little Pengelly is being parachuted in to be the deputy first minister if when Stormont reopens? I suppose. I mean, they must be making. DUP must be making moves to get that done. I mean, what the fuck, a woman? It's amazing. And the Trades Description Act, it should be called into in there. There's nothing democratic about them at all. I mean, that woman can't get elected, but she's nonetheless. But anyway, so here we go. This was the thing that I wanted to show you. Rome. Where are we? Browser. Let me just. Oh, sorry. I'll just throw this up. Oh, there it is. Where is it? Why did it not come up? Oh, pardon me. Sorry, give me 1 second here. Writers. I'm trying to get the browser up here so that I can show you the. That's interesting. Okay, try it a different way. Oh God, what's happened here now? Sorry, I'll just see if I can do no. Yeah. Okay. Don't know what's happened there. Supposed to be able to show you the browsers that I'm reading from, but it doesn't seem to want to. Let me just try. Sorry, just persevere here with me, guys. I'm just No. No. Ah. There we go. What's happened there? That was weird. I shouldn't have done that. So, there we go. That should be okay now. There we go. All right, we got it. So, sorry about that. These things do happen. So, Italy polls open, right wing alliance expected to win. Now, sadly, this right-wing alliance did win. Polls opened on Italy on Sunday in an election that is forecast. Let me see. I think I have a better article than that one. No, I didn't keep it. Okay. To return the country's most right-wing government since World War II, and also heard its first woman Prime Minister. A right-wing alliance led by Giorgia Meloni's Brothers of Italy party appeared on course for a clear victory when the latest opinion polls were published 2 weeks ago. But with the polls blackout in force 2 weeks before the election, there's still scope for a surprise. There has been speculation that support for the left-leaning Five Star movement, the biggest party in 2018, has picked up in recent days. A late surge by Five Star could jeopardise the rightist alliance chances of winning. It didn't. So that's a bit of a nightmare. So Italy has elected a right-wing government. Yeah, not good. So, and that's so. Also, Sweden has as well. Spain, I think, has as well. So there's you know, it's kind of worrying really that these right horrible bastards are being elected. But you know, that's what happens whenever politics fails. You do tend to end up out on extremes like that. So here's another article. So that's that. So that's just want to share that with you. That's done, right? The shadow minister for Northern Ireland. Now, I don't even know who this fucker is. I don't know who's the fucking. I don't know who the latest. The minister for Northern Ireland is. I'll be honest with you. I comment on politics and I don't know who it is. I mean, I've heard the name, but I can't recall. I haven't got the recall to just, you know. So, Northern Ireland unionists have expressed alarm after the shadow Northern Ireland Secretary Peter Kyle said he would be prepared to call a referendum on Irish unity if certain conditions were met. Well, that's just going to the letter of the law. That's in the Good Friday Agreement. Kyle would set out the criteria for calling a border poll if Labour were in power. He told the BBC's Sunday Politics show at his party's conference, if the circumstances emerge as set out in the Good Friday Agreement, I, as Secretary of State, would not play games. I would call a border poll. He said, I am saying I am not going to be a barrier if the circumstances emerge. Under the 1988 agreement, the Secretary of State must call a referendum if it appears likely the majority of those voting would want to blah, 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 blah. We know that. SDLP and Sinn Féin have pushed for clarity on the criteria, which would lay out steps needed for a vote that would abolish the state of Northern Ireland and unify the island. Okay. Kyle said, Sinn Féin's emergence is the biggest party in Northern Ireland, and last week's census results, which showed Catholics outnumbering Protestants, which does not mean that you necessarily that you're going to get people voting one way or the other, did not suffice. We were not even in that circumstance yet. So, on Monday, the UUP leader Doug Beattie criticised the comments as unhelpful and ill-timed. Whatever. The Belfast newsletter said the Labour politician has muddied the waters on a border poll. It is unfortunate that Mr. Kyle has chosen this time to give succour to those who want to shatter the UK. What? Sinn Féin MP Chris Hazard welcomed Chris Kyle. Okay, right. So Sinn Féin went dead on. The rest, the DUP said, no, that sucks. So we know that. But I think he was at the Sinn Féin, because there's the Labour Party conference at the minute, and there's the Sinn Féin, what do you call it? They're having like a fringe event at the conference. So I think he was at that. So I think that's why he was talking about these things. But again, it's all bollocks, isn't it? Because ultimately, if they win the election, and if they win the election, it's hard to believe if there's going to be an election anytime soon that Labour may not win it. You know, we know how bad the Tories are, but there's no guarantee that Labour are going to win it. Let me just pop that down.
So I have seen.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, what's it?
I have seen you occasionally.
Yeah, you have indeed.
It's so funny. Poor wee fucking Jeffrey. And the way King Charles looks at Michelle, it's always a bit gets me. He looks the leader of Sinn Féin. I know this, don't I? So, again, it's just playthings. If Labour win, there's no guarantee that this guy's going to be he's not going to just transfer straight to that office. They'll have a reshuffle and he'll not be in charge anyway. And we've had 4 or 5 ministers for Northern Ireland in as many years. So it's all bollocks. We need to be in charge of our own shit. Tony G, sorry, I'll turn to the YouTube comments here just before we push on. So we're going to hit the main story. Tony G says, read 2 books by Andrew Rawnsley, Servants of the People and the End of the Party. It all started with the Blair Brown Project. Yeah, without a doubt. Sorry, I brought out a tin of Guinness, by the way. I was in the pub yesterday. I was in the Woodville and Mickey Bartlett was there and we were there far too long. We drank some whiskies and I have a wee bit of a head on me all day. Rev says, there's part 1 of the Labour files, which is well worth a watch. So, okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Is this part 2? That's what this is, right? Right? So there was a part 1. I seen the part 1. That was a long time ago. Well, I'm not mistaken, right? This is a part 2. Okay, that's cool. Well, if it's anything as good as that part 1, it'll go and be amazing. Rev says, yes, Kyle was at the Shinner event. Absolutely, that's what I thought. Michelle O'Neill missed the Fringe event due to a virus. Emma Little Pengelly called talk of a border poll simplistic, reductive and even sectarian. Yeah, I'm kind of not really caring much. There's no contribution, this whole, there's so much work going on. Now, I don't know if there's any fruits going to come from these conferences. There's one happening up in Belfast soon. I'm going to be up at it. Again, I'm going to go up and start interviewing people. I was talking to my friend who's in Sinn Féin, and is it the 8th of October? There's one in Belfast, and I'm going to go up, and he's going to try and get me to interview a few people, but I need to get a fucking thing, and I keep, like a mobile microphone outdoors recording device thing, and so I'll need to do that. So all these things are going on, and if there's anything comes of them, I don't know. But the idea that there's nothing happening is nonsense. And I was reading on Twitter the other day. I think it was Ben Lowry, and he was saying about there's nothing happening, and no one, it's no point in having a conversation with yourself. But people put under the post that he was complaining on all these massive events, and they're fucking huge. Like 30 speakers all talking about what a shared Ireland is going to look like. Professors, not fucking slabbers like me, learned, respectable people, So there's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of work going on, and as Pengelly says, reductive and even sector. I mean, it's ridiculous. Rev to also right clarification. Rev says the Purge is part 1. It's new as well. Okay, so what was the one? There was one out a few years ago, wasn't there? The one whenever it was on Al Jazeera as well. So this is not connected to this. The one where there were when the anti-Semitism was in full flow, right? So yeah, okay. So there we go. So let's get to it. Trickle Down Economics. What is Trickle Down Economics? There it is there. So this is the smarty pants people.
So I have seen.
Oh no. I clicked that by mistake, but sure. It was okay. So Trickle Down Economics. What is it? This is from an article on a website called Investopedia. Trickle Down Economics and its policies employ the theory that tax breaks and benefits for corporations and the wealthy will trickle down and eventually benefit everyone. Tools like reduced income tax and capital gains tax breaks are offered to large businesses, investors and entrepreneurs to stimulate economic growth. The key takeaway is the trickle-down theory states that tax breaks and benefits for corporations and the wealthy will trickle down to everyone else. Trickle-down economics involves less regulation and tax cuts for those in high-income tax brackets as well as corporations. Critics argue that the added benefits the wealthy receive add to the growing income inequality in the country. So, this is a thing called the Laffer curve. So, the trickle-down economics and the Laffer curve. So this is, I saw this, Professor Richard Wolff, the first time I ever heard that phrase, the Laffer curve, it was from him. So American economist Arthur Laffer, he says it's called the Laffer curve for a good reason, because it's laughable. American economist Arthur Laffer, a member of the Reagan administration, developed a bell curve style analysis that plotted the relationship between changes in the official government tax rate and actual tax receipts, known as the Laffer curve. The non-linear shape of the Laffer curve suggested taxes could be too light or too onerous to produce maximum revenue. A 0% income tax rate and a 100% income tax rate each produce $0 in receipts to the government. At 0%, no tax can be collected, but at 100%, there's no incentive to generate income, suggesting that specific cuts in tax rates would boost total receipts by encouraging more taxable income. Laffer's idea that the tax cuts could boost growth and tax revenue was quickly labelled trickle down. Under President Reagan between 1980 and 1988, the top marginal tax rate in the United States fell from 70% to 28%. Fuck me. Between 1981 and 1989, total federal receipts increased from $599 billion to $991 billion. The results empirically supported one of the assumptions of the Laffer curve, but could not prove a correlation between a reduction in top tax rates and economic benefits to low and medium income earners. So, you think, well, that sounds good. What's wrong with that? Well, let's listen to this Smarty Pants explain. Check it out.
My name is Evan Kirkpatrick. I'm the founder and CEO of Wendell Charles Financial and a contributor to Forbes. And the truth about trickle-down economics is it doesn't work. Trickle-down economics is the idea that cutting tax rates for the wealthiest individuals and businesses, as well as capital gains tax, results in a higher economic output. But they're not spending, they're either saving, they're investing, that's good, but it's not directly benefiting the middle class and the lowest income individuals like we thought it would. The data is showing that not only is the gap widening between the rich and the poor, but that it's happening at a very accelerated rate. This just isn't good for society. After analyzing the relationship between tax rates and economic growth since 1945, there's no correlation between lowering tax brackets and increased economic activity. If you give wealthy people a tax break, they're still only spending 30% of the income that they're bringing in. If you give working class people money, they're spending 98%, and poor people are spending 100%. So what we really need is the poor and middle class to have more money in their pockets, because that's what's driving the economy forward. I'm Evan Kirkpatrick, and the truth is, trickle-down economics don't work.
Thank you, Evan. Well said, my man. So there you go. He explains it quite easily. And obviously the reason we bring this up is because Kwasi Kwarteng, the new Chancellor of the British Exchequer, Chancellor to the Duchy of Lancaster, or whatever the fuck his full title is, basically enacted a mini budget, a quick, because he's just gone into, he's only been the Chancellor for a couple of weeks after Liz Truss's ascension to the throne. So he's this mini budget, and he's basically done trickle-down economics. And it's so discredited as an economic theory. So we can see here on this, Liz Truss was in America to try and secure trade deal. Bit of trade deal talk, post-Brexit trade deal talk, all that sort of stuff. She went home with her ass handed to her. Liz Truss goes to America and makes speeches fucking telling the rest of the world, in America specifically, that they need to follow her on her trickle-down economic policy. Now, as you can see here from the CNBC article, Britain pursues trickle-down economics despite scorn from Biden, and the stakes are high. President Joe Biden commented directly on this and said trickle-down economics never worked. Right? That was his response. The British government, so the key points, British government is set to announce sweeping tax cuts for businesses and the wealthy on Friday in a controversial mini-budget. The trickle-down economic approach, which comes as Britain faces its worst cost of living crisis in decades amid soaring inflation, has attracted criticism. This is suicide. Suicide. In a tweet, US President Joe Biden said he was sick and tired of the policy, adding it never worked. UK Finance Minister Kwasi Kwarteng is set to unveil the cuts to taxes on employee pay and banker bonuses, and that's the other. So, the restrictions that were put in place on bankers' bonuses have been lifted as well. You know, it's we'll get into that, but I mean that's just fucking nuts. It's just fucking nuts. It's like you're rewarding the fox for robbing the hen house. It's that stupid. The British government is set to announce sweeping tax cuts for businesses and the wealthy on Friday in a controversial mini-budget showcasing the lengths to which the new Prime Minister Liz Truss is willing to go to overhaul the UK economic policy, even as it draws political ire. Truss, whose Trussonomics policy stance has been likened to that of her political idols Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher, has said she is willing to slash taxes at the top end of the economic spectrum in a bid to boost UK growth, in a strategy typically dubbed trickle down. And you can see there, President Biden says, in a tweet, his official Twitter page, I'm sick and tired of trickle down economics as it has never worked. We are building an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. Downing Street said it was ludicrous to suggest the comment was aimed at Truss. Who the fuck else was it aimed? Who else was it aimed at? That's fucking... These people are fucking ridiculous. So there you go. I mean, even, you know, the Americans who basically invented this shit have discredited it. The president has discredited it. Now check this out as well. So this is another part of the same thing. So she was in America for various reasons. She's the new Prime Minister, so she goes to America and all the rest of it. But this is from Politico. UK's Liz Truss admits US trade deal out of reach. An agreement with Washington was once trumpeted as a post-Brexit prize by British politicians, but looks out of reach for now. Wow. So this is from September the 20th, this is last week. On the eve of her arrival in New York for the UN General Assembly, Liz Truss admitted a UK trade deal with the United States is unlikely to happen for many years to come. It didn't put that on the side of a fucking bus. The British Prime Minister, who flew to the US directly after attending Queen Elizabeth II's funeral, told journalists on a plane in answer to a question on trade, now this is fucking nuts, right? Check this out. There aren't currently any negotiations taking place with the US, and I don't have an expectation that those are going to start in the short to medium term. They're not even negotiating. The much vaunted US trade deal that was going to be, you know, the sparkles on the rainbow of Brexit, they're not even negotiating one. She said her number one issue for discussions with President Joe Biden was global security and making sure they were able to collectively deal with Russian aggression. Fuck me. Ascension to the comprehensive comprehensive and progressive agreement for the Trans-Pacific Partnership and securing a deal with the Gulf Cooperation Council, or Truss's, and I've heard of those things. I'm not absolutely sure. The British government has long been managing expectations on this front, but Truss's comments marked the frankest admission yet that such an agreement is beyond their reach. And Number 10 officials said Truss's change of message reflected the reality that Biden is not doing any deals. They added that the UK did not want to offer a deal to be the sword of Damocles hanging over negotiations on the Northern Ireland Protocol, which the US could withdraw if Washington objected to the British position. Wow. Truss's aides pointed to US state-level deals already struck, which so far number only 2. So they've done deals with 2 states in America, not the US as a whole, Indiana and North Carolina. I don't know how that works. I don't know what it means. But there we go. So, I mean, it's fucking insane. So, the move of the British Tories lurching rightward is shocking. It really is absolutely shocking. This is not a small thing. This is a fucking so quasi-court. So we'll get to the so Quasi-Kwarteng announced his budget on Friday. What happens? So we'll read the budget first. So this is a quick breakdown of the budget of what it is. I'm not going to bore you with this. We'll just a quick glance. This is on the BBC. At a glance, what's in the mini budget? Income tax, cutting the basic rate to 19%. Government estimates 31 million people getting £170 a year or more. This doesn't help. £170 a year to anybody is nothing. But collectively put into a big pool, that pays for shit, right? This is the literal definition of class war. This is how the establishment carry out class war. This is one of the things that they do, right? Currently, people in England, Wales and Northern Ireland pay 20% on any annual earning between 12,570 right? 45% rate of income tax abolished for England, Wales and Northern Ireland taxpayers. One single higher income tax rate of 40% from April next year. National insurance, they reverse the recent rise of national insurance. So that's, again, it's another, it's an act of class war. It's a continuing down the road of privatisation of the NHS, which is, as you know my thoughts on it. It's the best thing that's ever happened. It's fucked. It's over. It's gone. Workers and employers have paid. A new health and social care levy to pay for the NHS will not be introduced. So you can see what they're doing here. You know, it's a clear direction of travel. It's a clear sign of intent. Corporation tax. The UK-wide rise in corporation tax was due to increase from 19 to 25%. In April, it's been cancelled. A part of the arguments that the Tories give is that this encourages development, this encourages research, this encourages inward investment, etc., etc. These things aren't true. This is just a part of the trickle down economic theory, which is nonsense, smoke and mirrors, voodoo economics, as it's called. And it's all to do what? Hollow out the tax base, put taxpayers' money into the hands of the already wealthy, undermine public services so that they run them down to privatise them, in order to privatise them, because you go, look, they don't work, so we're going to have to privatise them. So that's what this is all about. What now? All the things that the Tories say that the cancellation of the tax cuts are going to provide, the inward investment, the research, etc., etc. It's not a tax break that's going to do that, but something will. So what is it that does that? An educated population, a healthy population, good infrastructure, good communications links. That's why whenever I put up on a thing the other day about whenever we unite Ireland, a part of the things that we have to do is to provide an all-island healthcare service, sort out the housing crisis on the island, and connect the West with the rest of Ireland. That connectivity is essential. Today that means high-speed broadband, but it also means bus links, rail links, and road links. Yeah, airports, regional airports, all things like that. Those are the things that create investment. These are the things that a major employer, a big international corporation or company will look at whenever they're considering an investment in your country. It's nothing to do with tax cuts, believe it or not. Very little anyway. So, benefits. Rules around universal credit tightened and reducing benefits if people don't fulfil job search commitments. So, and again, I mean, literal class war, a dig at the poor already. I mean, if you're living on universal credit, you're the poorest of the poor. Stamp duty, the cut in stamp duty, freeze on energy bills, which the government claims will reduce inflation by 5 percentage points. The freeze on energy bills is going to cost the taxpayer an absolute fortune, because all they're doing is just letting the gas and oil companies charge what they want, and then the taxpayer's going to take up the slack, make the difference. So you pay 1,000, but the oil company's charging 3,000, and the taxpayer is going to the tax base is going to cover the difference. Again, the answer is nationalisation. We need to nationalise these fuckers. They're greedy. They're a danger. They're treasonous. I mean, I'm not a big sort of, I keep saying this, I'm not a one for treason, but I don't see how this betraying your country isn't that. It's just that is right. So there's a couple of others. Bankers' bonuses. Rules which limit bankers' bonuses. Scrapped package of regulatory reforms to be set out later in the autumn. If there's going to be reforms coming in and it's the Tories that are in charge of it, it's not going to be reforms. There's not going to be any regulations. They're going to make it easier for these vampires to fucking continually rob everyone. Now here's an interesting one. I think it was Demo sent me some stuff on this a while back, or maybe I think it was Demo about these free trade zones or whatever they're called. Government discussing setting up investment zones with 38 local areas in England. Tax cuts and liberalised planning rules to be offered and release land for housing and commercial use. Investment zones. So they're basically setting up free ports. They call them free ports, and they're basically you're just giving over a part of your country to a corporation. That's what that is. So that's basically what the budget looked like. So that was announced on Friday. So let's have a quick look at what the results of it. So we'll just blast this up real quick. So Kwasi Kwarteng announces. Why? This is annoying. I have things loaded in and they're not loading in. There it is. What happened there? So there it is. So Kwasi Kwarteng announces the budget on Friday, and by the end of the day, the pound had sunk to an all-time low against the dollar. Quick question: will you be taking your next 100,000 donation from the wife of a former BP executive in dollars? And there's Truss, Kwarteng and all the Tory MPs need to resign. Conservative have crashed pound sterling and lost 21% this year against the dollar. The Tories said that if Labour were elected that the pound sterling would fall off a cliff. Under the Conservatives, and right now the pound is literally nosediving because tax cuts pour fuel on an already raging inflationary fire, and the economy is dragged down by the pound borrowing to pay for it. Pound hits all-time low. Shameful. And there's somebody else says here, an economic terrorist who hasn't even got the balls to comment on his damaging reactions. He's getting doorstepped there. And yeah, so there we go. But apparently what has happened now is there's a joke there. Liz Truss looks set for a pounding after letters no confidence start to land. The chair of the Conservatives 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady. There's a picture of a post vans. So apparently the Tory party MPs aren't having this because they're getting fucking... Their constituents are like, what the fuck? So it's not going well for Truss. I heard a lot of people saying she's not going to make Christmas, but that was before the budget. So, you know, so there we go. So that's the state of play. Now this gets even worse. I'm not joking. This is so we're only up to Friday. We've got the whole weekend. Now, here's a quick article by. I wonder will I show you. So I'll show you this first, right? And then I'll read you an article that Damo sent me. So there's this dude here, right? Mark Philbrook. He's been appointed Liz Truss's chief of staff. So here's the problem. Is the PM's chief of staff, Mark Philbrook, being paid through a lobbying company? That's the question, right? The answer is yes, he is. Liz Truss's chief of staff is being paid a salary via his lobbying company firm and is only seconded to number 10 in an arrangement that he won't explain. So, what does this mean? They have technically privatised number 10 Downing Street. That's what this is. So he's works for a lobbying company or has a lobbying company. What is a lobbying company? We're going to get to that. A lobbying company is an organisation that exists to curry favour and peddle influence among politicians. Right? He has been appointed Liz Truss's chief of staff of number 10 Downing Street while still working. He's not taking a salary from the government. He's not employed he's employed by this lobbying company. That's fucking nuts. It gets worse. That's not even the worst. This was all breaking news today. It's even worse than that. Now, where do you hear this? So the bigger question for Mark Philbrook is who funds you, or why won't you travel to America? Why will Mark Philbrook, the chief of staff of the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, why can he not travel? Why will he not travel to America? So here we see down here where let me just see if I can find the thing. I might have to actually search for it. But basically, he's wanted for questioning by the FBI on a corruption charge that he bribed. Let me see if I'll just do Mark Philbrook a wee search here for you. Just give me a sec. That he bribed people in an election. There it is. So the Mark Philbrook story is interesting. If you don't know the background, he's been interviewed by the FBI over an alleged criminal bribery plot in the US. A Tory donor, Julio Herrera Velutini, is alleged to have bribed Wanda Vasquez Garcia $300,000 on the condition she sacked Puerto Rico's financial advisor who was examining suspicious transactions into the bank owned by Velutini. Because he wasn't a US citizen, he wasn't allowed to donate to her campaign, so he paid the money to a CT group founded by Linton Crosby, another Tory donor. Philbrook took lead on jobs, etc., etc. So that's where we are, right? We're this is fucking nuts. It's even worse than we're keeping going, right? So it's even madder than that. So check this out. So Damo sent me this article, and I appreciate it. Thank you, Damo. Fucking great. George Monbiot. See if I can get this up for you. Yeah. So there we go. George Monbiot. Has Liz Truss handed over power to the extreme neoliberal think tanks? So the think tanks, the lobbying guys, same sort of idea, right? Well, yeah, pretty much. But would you hear this? Who chose Liz Truss? Conservative Party members, of course. Who are they? Disproportionately rich, white, older men living in the south of England. But there are some members whose profiles we have no means of knowing. They don't live in the UK, have never been residents or citizens here, and have no right to vote in our elections. Astonishingly, since 2018, these foreign members have been permitted to determine who the UK Prime Minister should be. The Conservative Party's rules of association are an open invitation to anyone who wants to mess with our politics. There seems to be nothing to stop agents of another government from registering as members with Conservatives abroad, nor, it seems, is there anything to stop one person or one bot swarm applying for multiple memberships. So much for the party of patriotism, sovereignty and national security. This open invitation, to judge from the little information we can glean, has yet to be fully exploited. Perhaps foreign governments haven't yet realised what a golden opportunity they've been given. Perhaps they simply can't believe how irresponsible the Tories are. So, what he's referencing there is, in the recent, we know that the Liz Truss was elected by Tory party members and Tory party members only, right? But if you can register as register as members of the Conservatives abroad for 25 quid. That's it. And that's you can vote in that election. Now, that's a clear breach of national security. Never mind, common sense. So we don't need to suggest a campaign by another state to see Truss as a kind of Manchurian candidate. This is what we're getting to. Subverting what remains of our democracy on behalf of undemocratic interests. As a rule, the more loudly a politician proclaims their patriotism, the more likely they are to act on behalf of foreign money. Every recent Conservative Prime Minister has placed the interests of transnational capital above the interests of the nation. But to a greater extent than any previous leader, Truss's politics have been shaped by organisations that call themselves think tanks, but would be better described as lobbyists who refuse to reveal who funds them. Now she has brought them into the heart of government, and I just explained to you a moment ago. Mark Fulbrook is being paid by one of these firms, the chief of staff. Her senior special advisor, Ruth Porter, was a communications director at the Institute of Economic Affairs, an extreme neoliberal lobby group. An investigation by the Democracy Campaign, Transparify, never heard of them, listed the IEA as highly opaque about its funding sources. We know from a combination of leaks and US filings that it has a history of taking money from tobacco companies, and since 1967 from the oil company BP, and has also received large disbursements from foundations funded by US billionaires, some of which have been among the major sponsors of climate science denial. So whenever we're two-siding the climate change argument, you sitting there with a scientist says one thing and then some random dude from a think tank. This is who's paying the think tank? Shell. So what's the random dude from the think tank? What's his opinion going to be? It's going to be what Shell wants it to be, right? So this is the problem. And then I remember someone explaining, they were asking, said, well, why do we, whenever, over Brexit, why do we end up with these think tank people, and then there's no learned person on the opposite side of the argument? Well, there's a couple of reasons for to disprove their points. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is our entire media ecosystem is completely taken over by right-wing billionaires. That's basically what it is. The BBC, even the whole news division is just full of Tories. So there's that. Excuse me. But One of the other reasons, and someone explained this, I thought that was fascinating. On one hand, you've got someone from a think tank. A think tank is set up. Some producer from a TV show needs someone to talk about this, and they've got, they're going out that evening. We're going to, they decide in the morning, we're going to do this story, and that evening they've got to have someone to talk to. So you go onto these think tanks' website, they've phone numbers and email. You phone them, you send them an email, they get back to you straight. Someone from the BBC wants someone to talk about climate change, to talk about Brexit, talk about economic policy, trickle down economics, etc., etc. Boom, they've got someone there. 20 minutes, they're at your door. That's what they do, right? On the other hand, the learned professor from Oxford who can counter him doesn't even know how a webcam works. And it might be 3 days before you can get him to talk because he's busy. So this is how a part of how our whole political public discourse and narrative gets distorted by these people, right? They're very slick. So back to the article. Ruth Porter we're talking about. When she worked at the IEA, Porter called for reducing housing benefit and child benefit, charging patients to use the NHS, cutting overseas aid and scrapping green funds. She then became head of economic and social policy at Policy Exchange, which is also listed as highly opaque. Policy Exchange is the group that after Porter left called for the new law against Extinction Rebellion. Remember that? Which became, in former Home Secretary Priti Patel's hands, the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act. We later discovered it had received $30,000 from the US oil company Exxon. Liz Truss, according to the head of the IEA, has spoken at more of its events than any other politician over the past 12 years. 2 of Truss's meetings with the organisation were deleted from the official record, then reinstated after the deletions caused a scandal. More importantly, Truss was the ostensible founder in 2011 of the Free Enterprise group of Conservative MPs. The group's web page was registered by Ruth Porter, who at the time worked for the IEA. The IEA organised events for the group and supplied it with media briefings. 12 members of the current cabinet, including several of its most senior figures, belong to the group. Today, if you try to open its web page, you're redirected to the Free Market Forum, which calls itself a project of the Institute of Economic Affairs. Right? This goes on and on. I'm not going to... No, you know what? I'm going to read it. Truss's economic advisor is Matthew Sinclair, formerly chief executive of a similar lobbying group, the Taxpayers Alliance. It's also funded obscurely by foreign donors. Sinclair wrote a book called Let Them Eat Carbon, arguing against action to prevent climate breakdown. It claimed that equatorial regions might suffer, but it's entirely possible that this will be balanced out by areas like Greenland. In other words, we can trade the lives of billions of people against the prospects of some of the least inhabited places on Earth. It's amongst the most callous and ignorant statements I've ever seen. Truss's interim press secretary, Alex Wilde, was research director at the same organisation. Her health advisor, Carolyn Elsom, was a senior researcher at the Centre for Policy Studies, which was listed by Transparify as, you guessed it, highly opaque. Her political secretary, Sophie Jarvis, was head of government affairs at the Adam Smith Institute, also highly opaque, and funded, among others, by tobacco companies and US foundations. These groups represent the extreme fringe of neoliberalism. This is what we're talking about. This maintains that human relationships are entirely transactional. We're motivated above all by the pursuit of money, which shapes our behaviour. Yet, hilariously, when you challenge them about their funding, they deny that the money they receive influences the positions they take. So they just give them money for nothing. These companies are just throwing out thousands and thousands of pounds for fucking nothing. That's what they expect us to believe. These people who worship money above all. For decades, policy development on the right was shaped as follows. Oligarchs and corporations funded the think tanks. The think tanks proposed policies that, by sheer coincidence, suited the interests of the oligarchs and corporations. That's exactly what I said a minute ago. The billionaire press, also owned by oligarchs, reported these policy proposals as brilliant insights by independent organisations. Conservative frontbenchers then cited the press coverage as evidence of the public demand. The voice of the oligarchs was treated as the voice of the people. So that's really important that you understand that. I'm going to read that paragraph again. For decades, policy development on the right was shaped as follows. Oligarchs and corporations funded the think tanks. The think tanks proposed policies that, by sheer coincidence, suited the interests of the oligarchs and corporations. The billionaire press, also owned by the oligarchs, reported the policy proposals as brilliant insights by independent organisations. Conservative frontbenchers then cite the press coverage pardon me, as evidence of public demand. The voice of the oligarchs was treated as the voice of the people. Do you see? You see how it works? In his autobiography, Think Tank, Madsen Parry, founder of the Adam Smith Institute, explained how it worked. Every Saturday in a wine bar in Leicester Square, staff from the Adam Smith Institute and the Institute of Economic Affairs would sit down with conservative researchers and leader writers and columnists from the Times and the Telegraph to plan strategy for the week ahead and coordinate our activities to make us more effective collectively. The Daily Mail weighed in to help the lobbyists refine their arguments and ensure there was a supportive article on its leader page every time they published a report. But now the think tanks don't need a roundabout route. They are no longer lobbying government. They are the government. Liz Truss is their candidate. To defend the interests of global capital, she will wage war against any common endeavour to improve our lives or protect the living planet. If Labour is looking for a three-word slogan with which to fight the next election, it could do worse than mend this country. So there we go. What about that? That's shocking stuff. Thanks, Damo, by the way. I really fucking appreciate you sent me that article. Yeah. There's a few comments here on the YouTube. Sorry I've missed them. Rev Duffer says, New Ireland must not be for the Dublin-Belfast centric. It must be for all the people all over the country's rural areas, and the West cannot be left behind. Connolly would never stand for that either. Absolutely. Well said, Rev. Damo says, Labour said today that they'd nationalise the railways. Yes, just heard that. Yeah, seen that. They would nationalise the railways by just letting the current franchises expire, so no huge buying out costs. That's always the thing. They can do that. There's no problem. The contracts are bookended, and they can just let them run out and just say, well, that's it. Off the fuck now. So you don't need to buy them out. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't cost anything. Demos. The stock markets aren't believing hard enough in the Tories. Demo said, oh no, sorry. Demo, just stop the subsidies and the railways are uneconomical. They will be glad to give up the franchises then. There you go, 100%. Demo replied, the stock markets aren't believing hard enough in the Tories. Very good. No, yeah. They still pay executives massive wages in the real, yeah. 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 Very good. Brilliant. Thanks, lads. Appreciate the input. So there we go. Listen, we're pretty much done. So the pound tanks. Another article there on it's from a publication called Ungolo, which is an African outlet. It's September 22. So I'm going to read this to you because it's funny as fuck. September has not been a good month for Great Britain. The death of Queen Elizabeth on the 8th of September serves one of the remaining links to the former Great British Empire. The 96-year-old monarch performed her last official task as the head of state just 2 days before she died, when she said adios to Boris Johnson and welcomed her namesake Liz Truss as the new Prime Minister. The period of national mourning and round-the-clock coverage of all things royal gave Liz Truss's government a 2-week breather to formulate a strategy to dig the country out of the hole that began with the 2016 Brexit referendum. Everybody can see this. Not the Brits, though. Today, that hole became a giant crater when the pound sterling plunged to £1.03 against the US dollar, breaching the previous record low of 1.5 from the 25th of February 1985. It recovered slightly to 107 by the time the financial markets closed, but it's went back down again. So there's that. And then on this one, the reaction from the mini budget from the Northern Ireland parties. SDLP says it's a budget for millionaires by millionaires. Steve Aiken warned of the risks involved for the nation if the sought after economic growth fails to materialise. Fucking get off the fence, Aiken. Sammy Wilson says in a statement the commitment to allow the people to retain more of their money is welcome and will help the economy grow. No, it won't. The reversal of the national insurance is right. This will put money back into the people's pockets and helping them pay for increased fuel and food costs. Nowhere near enough. Whilst the announcement of investment zone sounds encouraging, disaster. We need the Northern Ireland Protocol removed and replaced by agreements which allow Northern Ireland to benefit. Yeah, so there we go. So you know what, UUP sitting on the fence there. That was a bit boring there from Aiken. We need to call that shit out. SDLP, correct. Sammy Wilson, you expect that. That's what you expect. You expect that from them. So there we go. The economy's fucked. So think about it. So the Tories have been in power for 12 years. Let's just we'll just summarise this and then put a pin in it. Call it done. They've been in power for 12 years. In that time, we've had austerity. So there was the 2008 financial crash, straight into the Tory government, who introduced austerity, continued austerity. The rest of Europe didn't do austerity, just the UK, right? Because it's about borrowing money. When do you borrow money? You borrow money in times of recession. Believe it or not, that's when you borrow. A government borrows. Because that's when the rates are at the lowest. It borrows from itself, the central bank. That's when the rates are at their lowest. So you borrow and you make that investment. So you start to fire the money out and do things with it in a governmenty way. And then that stimulates the economy. Nothing, tax cuts don't do that. The investment does. So, straight out of the 2008 financial crash, straight into austerity, then Brexit, then COVID, and now Boris Johnson and now Liz Truss. Continuing economic warfare on the working class and the poor. And a war on the country, quite frankly. And now we see why it illustrated, I think quite well illustrated, who's in charge of the government, who's in charge of the country. Liz Truss is a puppet. They all are to a certain degree. Everyone has to pay the piper. But nonetheless, shocking stuff, don't you think? I do. I think it's absolutely amazing. I know these think tanks have an outlandish amount of power, but they're now sitting in the heart of government, and we can see that Mark Filbert character, who is the chief of staff, as another commenter put it, she's basically privatised Downing Street. Think about it, like, that's mental. So that's where we are. And again, another reason why we need out of this disaster. We need to take control of our own affairs. We need to run our own country better, of course, but we need to do it as one island. That's always the point of me pointing this stuff out. I don't want to talk about British politics. I want to talk about Irish politics, but this is what we talk about, because these are our governors, and this is the world that we live in. So there we go. We're going to call it one more time.
So I have seen you occasionally
Yeah, you have indeed.
So I have seen you occasionally.
It's so good. So good. Poor wee Jeffrey. Okay, so listen everybody, like, share, subscribe. Head over to the Patreon if you're so inclined. You can lend me your support for as little as £1 a month. And YouTube, Twitter. We've got a Facebook, I don't use it much. Instagram, Twitter's the best place to get me though. So do that, and of course, yeah, if you're into coming to see my band, there we are. We're playing Voodoo. And we're playing in Derry with Alabama 3 on the 28th of October. Going on a Norway-Sweden tour on the 13th, back on the 22nd of October. And we're playing a Halloween ball here in Lurgan on the 29th of October. So you should do that. You should come. And if you want to come see me in Bangor, I'm doing a solo acoustic thing, just me and my own. With Stephen McCartney, I think is the guy's name, from King Cedar. He's playing as well. It's his thing. He hosts it. So I'm playing as well. So it's going to be good. So there we go. That's on Saturday, and it's free in, no cover charge. Just come along Saturday night. Come along, and I'll tell you some stories and sing you some songs. That's it. We're done. We're outie. Thanks to the boys on the YouTube mentioning or hit me up with some comment. Let me see. I'll just finish these comments here before we go. Demo says think tank faces are very good at arguing rather than being experts in a particular field. Yeah, debate. It's all a debatey tactic shit in it, which I don't know anything about and don't want to. Demo says you missed leveling up there, Andy. The rest of us have missed it too. In fairness, no sign of it yet. 100%, mate. Listen, you're absolutely 100% right. So there we go. We're done. Good night, lads. I'll just type in there. For a meal in my yogurt. And yeah, we're done. Okay, that's me. As I said, like, share, subscribe, head over to the Patreon, join me on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the usual fucking places. You know the crack, right? Let's do this. Ooh, disappearing from the screen. Bye.